Hi, this is Debbie O'Rourke again, and today we're going to be looking at masking fluid, both how to apply it and which ones come in a finer line to easily apply, and to see how long they take to dry, because I'm trying to find one that I can use for plein air painting that will dry quickly while I'm out there. And I do a lot of work with masking fluid, and I know it can be difficult to apply, but I have a few tricks. So we're going to try 5 different products I just happen to have here in front of me. I'm not saying these are what you should use, just they're the 5 I'm going to try today. The first one is the Holbein watercolor masking fluid. It's got a blue color and it's very liquidy. I've put it in my palette here, and you can see how it moves around, as does the next one, which is the Richardson medium liquid mask. And this is the one I use almost all the time when I'm doing my watercolor pouring techniques. The next one is Daniel Smith Artist Masking Fluid, and this one comes with a point, so that I should be able to squeeze it out and have a fine line. It actually comes with some other points. Where did I put them? I'm going to keep this. You want to keep these things completely closed when you're not using them, because they dry out very quickly and you don't want to get lumps. Yes, here we go. So here are the little tips that you can put on this Daniel Smith one, and they are, I think, all the same size. Very tiny little tips that we can put on right here. Okay, the fourth one is this PBO High Precision Masking Fluid Marker. I haven't tried this yet. And then there's a Schminky Masking Fluid Drawing Gum, it's called. Haven't tried that either. So other than the Richardson, I haven't used any of these. Now, first of all, I want to apply them in a large manner. So I'm going to start with these 2 liquid ones. And here's a little trick. Usually whatever brush you use will get ruined by dipping it in the masking fluid. It just gets all gummed up. However, in this little jar here, I just have some liquid dish soap from my top of my sink there. And if I dip my brush into, I'll do it in here. This brush has a little bit of paint in it still, I see. Maybe I better clean that out. Anyway, if you get some of this dishwashing fluid into the brush, and then use your mask, I'm just dabbing it off, it doesn't ruin your brush. So that's a nice way to do it. So I'm going to use this blue one, the Holbein masking fluid, and I've made some marks in my book here where I'm going to test. And first I just want to put on a large quantity and see how long it takes to dry. So it is currently 5:30, so we'll see how long that takes to dry. And then I also want to make some smaller lines and see if I can get a fine line with it. Pardon me, I'm just grabbing things I didn't think I needed. I'm just rinsing my brush off. Now I'm going to take a really fine brush to try and make some, I don't know if you can see it, it's white. And I'm going to dip it in my dishwashing fluid and then my blue fluid, and just see how, I don't know if you can see this, how thin of a line I can get that will still, when I put paint over it, protect it from paint. So I'm able to do some fine lines. This is very fluid and but also very thin, so I'm not sure how heavy an application I need to get a fine line. All right, rinse that brush out. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the Richardson. I'm dipping my brush into the soap, dabbing it off, and then I'm going into the Richardson. And again, I'm just going to make sort of a large area as if I'm blocking out a whole lot. Now, for instance, if you want to block out something you've already painted and prevent it from getting paint on it, you want to make sure that this really covers well. So, put my brush back in the water. I'm going to try my fine brush. Soap first, and then the Richardson. And this is a little thicker than the blue stuff, and I can't get as fine a line with it, but I do like the coverage on this. Yeah, I can't get as fine a line as I got with the real liquidy stuff, but we'll see how it comes out. And I know it's really hard to see this, especially since this light of mine seems to project more shadows than light. Okay, now I'm going to put those aside. I'm going to try this Daniel Smith Artist Masking Fluid. I'm taking the top off. I'm going to put one of these. I wonder if I have to cut it. Yes, I guess I have to cut it, which is probably why they give you the tips. So I'm just going to cut the tiniest bit off there. Woof! Yep, it's open. So it'll come out without, whoa, okay, without using the tips, it comes out quite thick. And I'm just going to use a palette knife. You can use a palette knife to spread this around. If you really want to cover a large amount, you know, use a palette knife. And then you can also make lines by using the palette knife on its edge and get nice lines. But now I'm going to put one of these little tips on. And let's see what kind of lines we can get with this. Oh, very nice. So when you squeeze it out, sometimes they come out with a big blob right in the beginning. But this seems to come out pretty smoothly all along. It is a thick line, but it's a nice application. I'm going to take the tip off, pop it in water so it doesn't harden in there. Put the cap back on. Okay, next we're going to go to the PBO. And it has a shaker in it, so I better shake it. Okay, this actually has like a pen nib. These kind where you have to press down to get it to come out. Okay, and it's coming out, it's blue, so you know that it's down there. Oh, this is very nice. Look at the fine line I can get with that. Again, we'll see what it looks like after it's dried and we put paint on it. Put the cap back on, and finally we're going to try the Schminke, and I may be saying all these names wrong. Excuse me if I am. Fine liner. And that is open, okay. And here we go. Okay, this makes quite a bit bigger, fatter line, depending on how hard you press it. And I'm never good at keeping constant pressure. Okay, so that's a little harder to squeeze and a little thicker of a line, but it can have its purposes. You never know what you're going to need. So that has all taken me 5 minutes, and I can see that This one is already starting to dry, but not enough for out in the field. And I want to just make a really smooth area here. That's about the same thickness as that other one, so we can test out the drying. The Richardson is drying nicely. I can see that. But we're going to wait now and see how it dries, how fast it dries, and then we're going to put some paint over it and then try to peel it off and see what we get. What I do want to do before I end this part of the video is to try this out on this tan multimedia paper. Try it right here. I'm going to move this out of the way. And I just want to see how the fluids peel off on this kind of paper. I've only ever used them on watercolor paper, so I don't know if they peel nicely. And you should always test every paper before you invest a lot of time and then go to peel it off and you've got a problem. So I'm just going to put some lines and a little bit thicker bit. That's my brush. Go back in the soap. Now I'm doing the Richardson. I'm also going to try in this book, I'm going to try using gouache over these. They should all work with gouache or watercolor or inks, because they just protect the paper from getting ink on it. So that's that too. And we'll try the Daniel Smith. And this is just to see if the paper peels up when I pull it off or not. Here's the PBO. PBO doesn't seem to want to stick to this paper. It's a very thin application. And lastly, the Schminke. And I wonder if I could put, this comes out sort of thick, but I wonder if I could put one of these Daniel Smith things on it and see what, no, they won't stick on it. So, but there might be other tips for the Schminke that I can get that'll make it come out finer. So I've developed a bubble here. Pop it. And now we're going to wait 15-20 minutes and come back. So I'll see you later. Okay, I'm back. It has been 40 minutes since I put these on. And what I've observed is that, of course, the PBO, which is such a fine line and very thin, it dried within about 8 minutes. So that would be a great one to use when you're doing plein air if you want it to dry quickly. The rest of these took a lot more time. Now, the thin lines that I did dried much quicker, of course, than the bigger areas where I put it on a lot more thickly. So after a half hour, the thin lines were pretty dry, but the fatter areas were not. The Daniel Smith still is not dry. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's not what I want for painting plein air, because usually when I'm using masking fluid, I leave it for hours, sometimes overnight, to dry before I start painting, because I don't want to ruin a giant painting that I'm working on. But for little things in my sketchbook, I might go a little sooner. The Schminke was really interesting because it turned clear as it dried, so you could sort of tell that it was dry. Let's see if I can get a little bit clearer view for you. And again, I'm sorry about these shadows, despite the fact that there's a light on here. So you can see that the Daniel Smith is still wet. And these other ones may be a little wet, but I'm going to go ahead with this because I want us to see what happens if your masking fluid isn't dry and you put your paint on. So I'm going to put watercolor paints on this white paper, and I'm going to put gouache on this one. You can see both of these books I accidentally closed while moving things around. they smushed the lines a little bit, and this one actually stuck to the painting on the other side and removed some of the green colors, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. So I picked some really nice bright colors for us to play with. First I'm going to do the watercolor, and you can see this brush I cleaned out. This is what I used for the masking fluid. It is perfectly clean and ready to use for my watercolor. So I'm just going to try and paint over a lot of this stuff. Not trying to do anything fancy. You just want to see how the masking fluid works. So the Daniel Smith still isn't dry here in the middle. And you can see sometimes where, you know, you have a lot of raised masking fluid, you have to really work to get the paint into there, into the grooves. But I should be using a much thicker brush. I don't know what I'm doing with this. Now I want to go over these areas at the top that might not be completely dry and see what happens. And you see that the masking fluid does absorb some of the paint, but once you take it off, that's all gone. The Richardson seems to repel the paint more than some of the other ones, but all right, that's looking good. Now we're going to let that dry. In the meantime, I'm going to come over here and use the other book. And I'm going to use almost the same color gouache. Gouache is a lot more opaque. I've got some large areas here and some small areas, but we'll see. And you can see the Daniel Smith isn't dry, and it's sort of lifting up as I paint over it. And some of this is actually coming off. This is the schminky coming off as I paint over it. All right, there we go. So let's let this dry till the paint, let the paint dry for 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll peel off the masking fluid and see what we have left. I should mention that I live in the desert, so things dry very quickly here. And if you live in a more humid environment, you might want to triple all these drying times. I do like the PBO, and I think I might get some of that in a liquid format to paint on too, and we'll see which one is my favorite when we pull it off. They all work. I've used many different masking fluids, and I love the effects that you can get with them. You can have an awful lot of fun using masking fluid to keep your white areas when you're painting with water media. So there's also a new one that just came out for acrylics, and I'm going to try that out soon and see if it works for acrylics or oils, or how it works. So keep tuned for that video. All right, we'll be back shortly. Okay, we're back. It's been about 20 minutes. Again, I live in the desert. Things have dried quickly. I'm going to start with the gouache because it did dry a little quicker than the watercolor. But again, we're going to try it. What happens if you remove it and your paint isn't dry? Because you can make horrible mistakes by rushing it. And when you've gone to a lot of trouble on your painting, you don't want that to happen. I should have mentioned that while you're waiting for it to dry, don't try using a hairdryer, because masking fluid can change if you heat it up and can be harder to remove or can have some other effects. So you don't want to use a hairdryer on your paint when you're waiting for masking fluid to dry. There's two ways to remove it. Some of them are removable easily with your finger. We have a couple different kinds of erasers. This is a kneaded eraser, great for erasing pencil marks. A white eraser, nice for pencil marks. Don't use them for this. This is a rubber eraser. It's pretty rough, but this just picks up the gumminess of these. If you run your finger over them, you can feel that they feel a little rubbery. So here I'm just going to rub my finger over this and see that it's coming off. The masking fluid turned into this gummy, solid, cellophane-y type stuff. It's no longer liquid, and it comes off with rubbing, but this will remove it much easier. And once you get it removed, you can just peel it. It's so much fun. This is my favorite part because you get to the end and you don't really know what's underneath till you remove it. This is that was the Schminky, nice clear masking. This is the PBO, which went on super thin and I was unsure how it would work, but look how beautiful. So even though it was super thin, it really masked very well. And you know, when you're done, you just rub your finger over and you can tell if there's any more masking on it. Now, here we go. My paint isn't completely dry here, so look what I did. I ruined it. I rubbed wet paint back over the areas that I just unmasked. Okay, this Daniel Smith still isn't, the masking still isn't dry. So the paint isn't dry and it's a bit mushy. Still, you can see it's a cellophane. I don't know if that's the right word. Some kind of a rubbery, cellophane-y kind of feel to it. And again, since the paint isn't dry, everything's smearing. I don't have a clean. And that's not to say Daniel Smith is bad. It's just that you have to use it the way it's meant to be used, and I'm not sure I am here. But here it did, on this mixed media paper, the Daniel Smith did remove a little of the paper. So I would probably only use that on watercolor paper. All right, let's go over to the Richardson, which has been my brand of choice for a long time. Nice, good lines. This is Richardson here where I put a more thicker application to cover more area. Again, you know, I've smeared some of the paint because it's not entirely dry. Like I say, when I do this on my good paintings, I let my masking fluid dry overnight, I let my paint dry overnight. I don't take any chances in removing it too soon because you don't want to ruin it. Okay, now we're into the Holbein, which also behaves very nicely. So they're all really nice masking fluid, and they work very well on this paper. I just probably wouldn't use Daniel Smith on this paper, or I'd wait for it to dry properly before I did it. So, so it works on this paper, and it gives a nice hard edge, good results. So yes, you get very hard edges when you use masking fluid, but you can, after you remove the masking fluid, go back in and you can soften some of these edges a little bit by smearing them so they're not as hard. So there's lots of things you can do with the masking fluid and still have a difference in the tone. Okay, let's go back to the watercolor paper. How do you know when it's dry? Well, there's a couple different ways. Number one, you can feel it, and if no paint comes off on your hand, it's relatively dry. But the better way is to feel it, and if it feels cool to the touch, like up here, this is not dry up here. But these other areas are a lot more dry. So we'll start over here. And just start rubbing it off. And look how beautiful. That was the Schminky. And don't forget, I smushed them all by closing the book, so they're not as fine lines as they were when I put them on. Okay, and my paint isn't completely dry, so I'm rubbing it off here. But the PBO works beautifully, very happy with that. I'm going to skip the Daniel Smith for now and go over to the Holbein. And up here it isn't completely dry, but I'm still going to remove it. Nice. Okay, then the Richardson is down here. Sorry, my chair is squeaking as I move. And then up here. Now, if you're doing an area, say the sky, I did get a little bit of bleed through here. If you're doing sky, I would do 2 layers of masking fluid if you really don't want any colors to bleed through. All right, and finally we'll go to the Daniel Smith, which was a little thicker application, so it did take longer to dry, and I did smush it, but look, it's doing a beautiful job. Get a hold of some of this and peel it off. This is really sticky. Now when you're all done, you just rub your hands over and you can feel places like right here. I didn't completely remove it. You can feel it. It's just very rubbery under your fingers. And you keep going over it until you make sure you've removed everything, all the masking fluid. And now you can put other colors over these white spots. It's just the white of the paper, and you can make it be any color you want, or you can leave it white. So it's very, very satisfying, I think, to remove masking fluid. So there you go. You can put it on with a brush. You can put it on with a palette knife. You could put it on with a nozzle. And the PBO definitely gave the finest lines and the quickest drying. And the quickest drying is only because it went on so thinly, not because it has some other properties, I think. I want to try, like I say, putting on a more liquid one that I can spend time letting it dry. So enjoy using masking fluid. It's a wonderful way to enhance your watercolor paintings. And I'll see you next time.